Hello, everyone. I'm Dennis Day with Getting Your Edge, How to Downsize Your Life. I'm here with my co-host, Judy Gratton. How is your day going so far, Judy?
So far, so good, Dennis. Thank you.
And we have our guest, Jeannine Bryant from Lincoln, Nebraska, here to talk about her business. Our guest, Jeannine Bryant, is a rightsizing expert and author. She's worked hundreds of families over the last 10 years as they downsize or clear out their home of loved ones who have died. She presents at workshops across the Midwest, offering practical advice on rightsizing, downsizing, cleaning out an estate, and more. Jeannine is the CEO and owner of Changing Spaces SRS in Lincoln, Nebraska, where she leads a team of 20 employees who help her clients through the transitions. She is an author of 3 books and 2 yearly calendars about downsizing. Jeannine's website offers a plethora of information about rightsizing and downsizing. She is also an active member of Lincoln, Nebraska's Coalition for the Older Adult Health Promotion, as well as a member of the Lincoln Caregiver Education Group. Her company, Changing Spaces, was selected to receive the Small Business of the Year award in 2019 from the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce. She's originally from Hillsboro, North Dakota. Jeannine now calls Lincoln, Nebraska her home, and she lives with her husband and 2 children. Welcome, Jeannine.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I appreciate it.
You've got a thriving business in this. You've got a podcast and you've got books. You've got a great website that offers amazing. How did your journey from growing up on a farm in North Dakota to founding Changing Spaces SRA shape your approach to supporting downsizing?
I always say that I was very blessed to grow up surrounded by older adults. I grew up on a farm. My folks were farmers up in North Dakota. My brother is still a farmer and my dad lives up there. My mom has passed away, but I grew up 1 mile from one set of grandparents and 1.5 miles from the other set of grandparents. We were the only grandkids around. We had some cousins in another state, but it was like my brother and I, and then all 4 of our grandparents. We had a great aunt and uncle who never had any children. So my mom was the entertainer of our whole extended family. All these older folks would always be over at our house for every birthday, every holiday. And I just grew up around them. I've always loved working with seniors, and I've always been gifted and really enjoy organization. For me as a kid, reorganizing my closet was like the most fun thing I could think of. I used to stay up late and do it. When I discovered that that's something the world needs, that organization piece mixed with working with older adults, I thought, oh my goodness, this is the job for me. When I came to Lincoln, Nebraska, we could see that there was a real need for older adults who had been in their homes for decades and then moving into these gorgeous, wonderful retirement communities that were popping up all over. But it's overwhelming to think about, how do you even make that kind of a transition? How do you cut your square footage and your possessions in half and move into a smaller apartment like that and to do it well? And so that's where Changing Spaces was born.
Wonderful. Fantastic. It sounds like a wonderful childhood.
Oh, yeah, it was great. I loved growing up on the farm, but my number one goal was to get off the farm. I always wanted to be a town girl. And so now I am. But now as a mother, and I have a couple city kids, I think, oh man, I wish you could have the farm upbringing, but I like living in town personally.
You use the term rightsizing. Can you explain what rightsizing means to you?
Yes. We love that term because it puts a little bit more positive spin on it. But I always say it's rightsizing is finding that perfect place between too much and too little. My job is not to encourage people to get rid of all of their stuff. My job is to help people keep their favorite stuff and then let go of that stuff that doesn't mean so much so that their favorite stuff can be beautifully displayed and used in their new living situation. Keep the best, let go of the rest. That's the phrase that I always say.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
It makes it more, I think when people hear that term downsizing, it just feels like we're focusing on what you're giving up.
I know it's a negative connotation, but rightsizing is also very dependent on who they are and their personality and where they're going or not going. Or I think it's a really good phrase. I like.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone gets to choose for themselves how much is enough, right? We work with some gals maybe who are quilters. And so they need and want and use a whole bunch of fabric, right? That they want to keep with them and they want to fill their sewing room to the gills with fabric and whatever. Whereas someone else might be totally comfortable with more of a minimal lifestyle. And so it's whatever works for the individual. But what we want to do is we want to let go of that stuff that is weighing on us and causing us stress. If you love it, I want you to keep it. But it's that excess stuff. Too much stuff is just like too much food. Right? We eat food, we need food and we enjoy food. But if you gorge yourself, at some point, you make yourself sick with too much food.
Right.
Same thing with stuff, right? We want our homes to be beautiful and we want to enjoy them. At some level, it becomes the opposite. And now your home is not enjoyable to be in because there's too much stuff.
Now, your business also has a tagline, life is hard enough. Don't let your stuff make it harder.
Mm-hmm.
How did that phrase originate and how does it fit in with your business?
That phrase originated just from me watching our clients struggle with their stuff. And just a recent example, 2 weeks ago, we moved a couple into an assisted living apartment. And the majority of the folks that we work with are moving either to a townhome or independent living. And so it's a happy move. They're proactively choosing to right size and move to a more manageable home. Assisted living is another level of care. And the only reason someone goes to assisted living is because life has gotten hard enough in their current home that now they need more nursing help to help them with their activities of daily living. And so this couple really needed to move. It wasn't a I want to move, it's we need to move. But their stuff, every horizontal surface in their house was covered, every horizontal surface was covered with a little ceramic figurine. I've been doing this a long time. It was the most ceramic figurines I've ever seen in one place at one time. And they love their collections. And it was extremely hard for them to let go of those collections. And it became a huge barrier and a very high hurdle that they had to jump over. Honestly, we had to drag them over that hurdle to get them to the other side where they could move into assisted living. And again, we packed their favorite collections and brought them to their new apartment, but they had to leave a lot behind. And when your things accumulate and you don't address maybe your attachment to your objects in your home, it can become a big hurdle to living your best life at whatever stage it is that you're in. And so that was an example where life is hard for them. They needed to move to assisted living, and their stuff made it even harder. It would have been hard even if they had not had all this stuff, but all that stuff made it a whole lot harder to let go. And they're stressed now. They're worrying about, of course, we move them to assisted living. The majority of that stuff is still left in their house, right? And we've had conversations. The adult son is totally fine not putting the house on the market for a while. They're going to let it sit. But eventually, all that stuff will need to be dealt with. So there's a quote that I often use by a professional organizer, Sue DeRoos. She says that we all get organized eventually. We just might not be around for it. And so either we deal with our possessions or someone we leave behind will have to deal with them eventually, right?
Yeah, we've talked about that numerous times on the podcast about if you love your children, you will get rid of your stuff. You'll be part of that process because your children have lives and they have other things to do. They may not have their own kids. So they don't want to sort through your stuff when, and get rid of boxes and so forth.
And
Talk a little bit about that attachment.
I know. We all suffer from that, especially if we're not careful. Our identities can become wrapped up in our possessions. I have a 14-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son. And it struck me recently, I was trying to teach my teenager about how you'll never really be satisfied with your stuff. She wanted to buy an expensive pair of jeans. And I was trying to tell her, hey, that's be fun for about a week, but then after that, you're over it and it's not really make you happy anymore. And I thought, oh, wait a minute, that's the same kind of lesson that I'm teaching older adults. And it's the same lesson that I need to learn as well when I'm sitting there scrolling and buying because I'm bored or whatever. Stuff does not bring us contentment or peace. right? Contentment and peace to come from something other than our stuff. And in fact, if the stuff gets out of hand, it can bring us the opposite of contentment or peace, or certainly rob that contentment and peace from those we leave behind. Like you were saying, if we pass away and our kids have to come and take, I don't know, a week off of work, it's take longer than a week to empty out a house, right? And so maybe they spend every weekend for 6 months or 12 months coming and trying to empty out your house. That's robbing them of contentment, peace, their opportunity to mourn you because they're stressed about dealing with your stuff.
Resentments. Trust me, we're going through that right now with my mother-in-law passed. We're very fortunate that we don't live there, but my sister-in-law is like full-time trying to take care of this condominium that is huge. And I've never seen so much stuff. All very nice stuff. My gosh. I was talking to a client that we're going to be listing her home here shortly that is downsizing. And she brought up the idea of our grandparents and our parents and how our parents were raised in the Depression era. So I think some of the environment or what we live in affects how we look at quote unquote stuff. With me, I felt this responsibility to take on all of the family heirlooms, and now no one wants them. It's interesting to see how different generations are looking at stuff.
Absolutely. And you're so right. Past generations didn't struggle with the sheer amount of stuff because getting stuff was hard, right? It was expensive and you couldn't just order it on your phone and have it delivered to your door. It used to be really expensive to fill up your home. When you think about your first home, perhaps, we used to get a lot of hand-me-downs from our parents. And now it's cheap and easy to go to Target or IKEA for a newlywed couple and outfit their whole place.
Prefer that.
Yes.
I prefer that over grandma's china closet or whatever it is. They don't want it. And it's really hard to get that point across to people who feel that there's this value behind their china closet. It's really hard to get them to understand that there really isn't anything there.
I know. It's a hard pill to swallow.
So what are your strategies then when you approach people? Do you have a strategy of how you start to get them to understand the importance of letting go of some of the things that they're holding on to?
The majority of the clients that we work with, the issue has been forced because they are facing a move. They've decided that they're going to move by the time they contact us. So then we're dealing in a space where we have to just face reality. We always start with a floor plan. We measure their furniture that they think they want to take. We have measurements of the new place, and we create a floor plan so that they can see it on paper, what's going to fit and what's not going to fit. So is the apartment or is the new townhome big enough for your dining room table? And if so, then is there also room for the buffet and the china hutch? Or is there room for only one of them? Or do we need to take just the small curio cabinet that goes in the corner? We really get down to brass tacks. I remind them, you can't put 10 pounds of flour in a 5-pound sack. So we just got to work with what our new space looks like, what's going to fit in there, furniture-wise. Then after we know the furniture, we can start going through the little stuff, the dishes, the books, the clothes, the holiday decorations, and deciding what's going to fit in that new space. Because, for instance, the china, okay, if they can fit the china hutch into their new place and they want to bring it, then great. They can fill that thing with china if they want. But if the china hutch can't go, then can the china go? And if it does, then where is it going to live? Are we going to put it in one of the kitchen cupboards? Everything that we pack, we have to have an answer for where are we going to put this? And so that's why we always start with that floor plan, because we just have to face reality that we can't just bring it because we want it. We have to have a place to put it because it's not all going to fit.
Yeah, and that many times they'll just go, we'll get a storage unit.
Yeah.
It's like, why?
I know. I always joke, then you must have too much money. You can just send me money every month instead of sending it to them. Because what's the next play? If you're downsizing, if you're moving to a retirement community, do you think you're going to buy a house in 5 years where you're going to have more room? That doesn't make any sense. No one's going to ever go get that stuff. And so when we're dealing with estate sales, my company runs estate sales and online auctions as well. And so we have to have that conversation that we're not going to get out what we put into it probably, because it's all supply and demand. And if we're dealing with a client who is 85 years old, everyone in their generation has very similar things in their house. They all have the china huts, they all have the curio cabinet, they all have the snack trays, they all have the punch bowl, and they're all downsizing. And so a lot of those things are flooding the market, and there's more supply than there is demand. If you need a punch bowl, it'd be hard to go to Target and buy a punch bowl, but you can find a lot of secondhand punch bowls because there were a bunch that were produced in the 1950s and no one uses them anymore, right? So we're all trying to get rid of them. So that drives the price down. Big brown china hutches are a dime a dozen now. And then I try to tell my clients that that's okay because, again, going back to our identity, however much money you get for that item is in no way a reflection of how much you loved that item, how much life happened around that item. You bought that item 30 years ago and you have loved it for 30 years and you've had dinners for family throughout the year and it served its purpose. So God bless it. Maybe a 25-year-old is going to buy it and paint it pink, and that's okay. The secret to drama-free downsizing is to let go of it first emotionally, and then it becomes a lot easier to let go of it physically.
That's a really interesting point. Do you think people are getting caught up in the price? So if I have this thing that I think is incredibly special, meaningful to me, and nobody wants to buy it, does that bring negative feelings to people?
Yeah, it does.
Oh.
And so that's why we say, boy, if you think it's incredibly special and meaningful, then if we can figure out a way for you to keep it, we're going to try to figure that out, right? Let's try to find a place in your new home to keep it. But if it doesn't fit, then here we are back at reality again. You think it's incredibly special, but you cannot physically keep it. You tried to talk your family into keeping it. They are not willing to keep it. So now here we're in a position, right? Beggars can't be choosers. We have to find someone. And if it's a big item, it has to be someone local who will buy it and then have the ability to move it. And if they have to hire movers, then that's a couple $100 more. And all of these things factor in. And I always joke that show Antiques Roadshow is it's a fun show. I love watching it, but it's not very realistic. And most of us don't have these priceless treasures in our homes. And I often say, boy, I hope you have some mutual funds because your used couch is not going to fund your retirement. It's just not.
That's great. So in your book, Ready to Right Size, and on your website, you break down right sizing into 5 steps. Can you list those steps and walk us through one of those steps that your clients often find challenging?
Yeah. I think that the biggest challenge that my clients face is not going in the right order when we're doing those steps. So the first step when you're emptying out a house is to decide what you will keep. And this is whether it's your own house, you're moving, or if it's a loved one's home when they've passed away and you're tasked with emptying it out, decide what you're going to keep, right? You think about all the stuff in that house as being in layers. The best layer should be what you want to keep. And you get to decide, okay? Don't let guilt factor into that decision. What do you want to keep? The next layer is give what you're going to give to family and friends. Giving could be keepsakes and things with emotional attachment, those kinds of things that you want to give away. Or it might be practical things. Hey, I have a nephew who's setting up his first apartment and he needs a crock pot and a chair and a kitchen table. Great, take these things. The second is give away to family or friends. The third step then is sell what you can. And the reason we do that is because when you're selling what you can, it's like we've been talking about, and you think your china hutch, you should be able to get at least $425 for it, right? And someone comes along and no one's interested. Finally, someone offers you $175 for it. It feels insulting. But because you've already gone through steps 1 and 2, now you realize that everything that's left in the house is stuff that nobody needed, nobody wanted, or nobody had room for. So here we are facing reality again. We love this thing. We'd like to get $425 for it. But here's someone offering us $175. What other options? No one wanted this. So what other options do we have? So it makes it easier to let it go for maybe less than you had dreamed you would get for it. And then step 4 is donate what didn't sell. And then the 5th step is remove all the trash, because every house, even the cleanest house, has trash. And I always remind people that step 4, that donation, we want to make sure that we're donating quality items to the charities, things that could be used or things that would sell in a charity shop, because those places are running on shoestring budgets. Don't just bring them your trash that then they have to turn around and sort through and then dispose of themselves. So just going in that order is the secret sauce to those steps.
And your organization will handle that entire package for them?
Yes, we do. And that's what my team, we will stand alongside you as you do all of that. But what I would get all the time is phone calls from people outside of our geographic region saying, boy, could you help me through this process? And as much as I would want to, they couldn't afford for me to send my team out there to help them. That's when I started writing the books and the website Easy Rightsizing that I have, because I wanted to educate and help people. Even if me or my team wasn't physically there to help them with the sorting, I could at least tell them what to do.
So in a recent blog, the title of the blog, How Downsizing Supports Aging in Place, Even If You Don't Move, you stress that downsizing isn't just for people who relocate. And I find that to be a great topic. Could you give us some examples of where you've worked with people who've stayed in their present home and still you've dealt with downsizing with them?
Yeah, absolutely. When I meet folks and I tell them what I do for a living, they always say, I'm not going to move. And I'm like, oh, that's okay. I'm not going to make you. They're worried that I'm going to make them move. But really, this isn't just for older adults. All of us at any age, right? In America, we have stuff in our homes that we don't need, we don't use, and we don't particularly want. So really, this should be a lifelong practice of going through and culling through your items. But particularly for an older adult, I have even visited with clients in their homes and they say, I'm thinking about moving. I really don't want to. And they have these gorgeous homes and obviously enough money. And I think to myself, and sometimes I say to them, boy, I wouldn't want to move either. This is amazing. You've created an amazing home. And if they have the money, even if they end up in a place where they need the help, they can have in-home healthcare coming into their homes and helping them there. So not everyone has to move. But going through that downsizing process can make the home safer and more comfortable, even if you're staying in place. So I think about a client that I worked with a couple years ago where you go up the stairs, but there's little piles of stuff on each stair that you were going to bring upstairs or downstairs. And then you get up to the second floor and you walk down the hallway and now the stuff has started like leaking out of the rooms and into the hallways. And so there's stuff on both sides of the hallway. And mobility becomes an issue, and tripping and falling hazards are always a red light for me when I'm visiting with a client. If you or your spouse ends up having to be in a wheelchair or use a walker or even a cane, or if they're just not quite as nimble on their feet or steady on their feet as they used to, anything that's sitting on the floor, even a simple throw rug, can be a trip or fall hazard. And we've all seen those statistics that a fall after the age of 75 is a big deal, right? And some people never recover from it. A lot of people recover halfway from a fall like that. So anything you can do to prevent falling hazards, but also even in your cupboards and closets and drawers, getting out the stuff you're not using just makes life so much easier. You don't have to wrestle with the stuff. Maybe you have things in your home that you used every day for many years, but now we're in a different chapter. And maybe it's been 5 years since you've gone fishing, okay? But yet all that fishing tackle is still out in the garage. Let's get that out of your home and into the hands of someone else in your community or your family who can put it to good use.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
You've highlighted 10 mistakes that families make when helping seniors downsize.
Oh.
What mistake do you see most frequently, and what's your advice to families to help avoid that?
Yes. Dennis, I had to go back and find this resource. I thought, I wonder what it was that I wrote down. So this is one of the downloadable resources on my website, easyrightsizing.com. And I had a hard time picking just one, but I chose the mistake number 9 that's listed, which is understanding the time needed. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. If you've lived in your home for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, which is a lot of our clients, it's going to take more than a week to empty it out. And it's going to take more than a week to even just to move out. Things tend to accumulate over time, and it's very easy to kick the can down the road and procrastinate. But what I tell folks is that it's my recommendation that they're proactive and they start early, because in 3 years or in 5 years, you will have even more stuff, right? Because it keeps coming in every day. We got more stuff coming into our house. You'll have more stuff and less energy with which to deal with it. And so do it now. But particularly if a loved one has passed away and maybe the adult children are coming into town to empty out the house, like you were saying, Judy, with your mother-in-law, emptying out that condo is going to take more than a week.
Oh, so far, I think they're into it about 4 months.
Yes, right.
So far.
You just don't, when you haven't done it, and most people don't, right? They maybe go through this process once or twice in their life. They just vastly underestimate how much time and energy it's going to take.
Are you tired of the big house and the endless yard work? Are you ready for the next step forward in your life? Meet the Edge Group team, the downsizing experts in the Seattle area. With eXp Realty, we bring the experience, vetted vendors, and passion you need to transition to a simpler, less expensive lifestyle. Imagine freeing up your time to focus on what you truly love doing instead of chores you have to do. Our dynamic team offers over 30 years of expertise in the Puget Sound region. Less house, more home. Discover the art of downsizing with us. Reach out today and take the first step towards your new exciting lifestyle.
That's true. So you're a member of some senior-focused organizations, the Lincoln's Coalition for Older Adult Promotion, as well as a member of the Lincoln Caregiver Education Group. Can you tell us about those educations and why you're willing to volunteer?
Yeah, my city of Lincoln, Nebraska, I love it. It's the perfect, I guess it's a small city. To a farm kid from North Dakota, it seems like a big city, but we're about maybe 300,000 people here. And it's a perfect size community because everyone who works in the senior industry, most of us belong to this Coalition for Older Adult Health Promotion. And I'm quite sure that a lot of cities around the country have groups like this, where it's just a networking group where everyone who works in the senior services industry gets together monthly for education or social. And it's so important because when we're working with the senior population, it's a vulnerable group and they have lots of different needs, right? They don't just need maybe my help with rightsizing. They need help with home health care or hospice or insurance or whatever. And it's so powerful to know when you're sitting with a client, to hear about their needs and to know exactly who they should call. And not just a 1-800 number for a company. It's, oh no, I'm going to suggest you call Andrew at this place. Tell him I sent you. And to know really that client will be taken care of because you know these people, right? And you all work together. So that's why, to me, that's a very important organization. And then the other group that I'm part of is the Caregiver Education Group, and we are a group of professionals who give presentations and provide support groups for people who are serving in that caregiver role. And that is not a role that any of us ever expect to be in, but most of us, or at least half of us, probably will find ourselves in at one point or another. There's a great quote, I don't have it in front of me, but it's something like, at one time, everyone will either need a caregiver or be a caregiver in their life. And that is a difficult time. It's a difficult time for everyone for different reasons. For a lot of women that we work with who are in that caregiver role, sometimes this generation, this might be one of the first times in their life where they're making all of the financial and sort of household decisions. Maybe their husband primarily served that role, and if he's not able to, now they're thrust into that. On the opposite side, a lot of men of this generation are maybe not used to being a caregiver, right? My father is 77. He has never once changed a diaper in his life, right? And that's just the generation and the culture that we grew up in. And so for someone at the age of 77 to suddenly be a caregiver for their wife is a whole new world, right? And he's not prepared for it and they're thrown into it. And so to be able to provide the support and education of resources for those caregivers is really important.
That is wonderful. I love that. I'm wondering if we have any groups like that here. That is really a great idea.
Did you start either of these groups?
No, I didn't start them, but I just recognize a good group when I see one, and I thought,
Okay.
I can volunteer my services.
Okay. Well, let's get the extent of your business here. You provide, it seems like, all kinds of different services. What are the things that you do with your business and the things that you don't do?
Sure. Yeah. I have two businesses, right? Changing Spaces and Easy Rightsizing. So Changing Spaces is my service-based company in Lincoln, Nebraska, and we help with moves and in-home estate sales and online auctions. So we help get someone moved, and then we help empty out the old house after they've left. So those are the services that we provide there. And then Easy Rightsizing is my educational company that I started as an offshoot. And that's just easyrightsizing.com is a website where I have videos and blog articles and downloadable resources that you can get. And then I've self-published these books on Amazon on the right sizing process. So the first book I published is called Ready to Right Size. And it's basically a step-by-step handbook of how to downsize, right? If someone called me and said, exactly, tell me step-by-step what to do, that's what this book is. And then my second book is called Keep the Memories, Not the Stuff. And I wrote that because I knew that the hardest category of stuff to let go of is that keepsake clutter, the stuff that's all wrapped up in the emotions of lots of times it's someone you've lost. And then my third book that I just put out is called 101 Ways to Connect with a Senior. And that came out of, I always joke that I should have called the book, What Are We Going to Talk to Bernice About This Weekend? Because my mother-in-law, Bernice, she was 90. She's passed away now, but she lived in a retirement community, and we'd go and visit her, and we talk about the Nebraska Cornhuskers. She was a sports fan. We talk about the weather, catch up on the family gossip, and then what do we talk about? And so I was trying to always think of ideas to deepen that relationship, to help my kids connect with her in a new way. Older adults have this fount of knowledge and experience, and I'm always trying to figure out different ways to tap into that and to hear some of that. And so that's what that book is. It's just 101 ideas for connecting with a senior. And so all of that is available over at easyrightsizing.com.
Wonderful.
Okay. I guess from the title, when I saw that, I was thinking how does somebody who doesn't have a connection to a senior can get connected to a senior as a volunteer or something like that? Family members.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
I sent copies of it to the local retirement communities for their activities directors because it would work for that as well. But yeah, I primarily wrote it for family members because some people are naturally good at that and other people are not. And other people need some ideas and some prompting.
Okay.
Is there an organization? I think there is. There's Big Brother, Big Sister for kids.
Yeah.
Is there something like that for grandparents or where you're adopting a grandparent?
I do think there is. I don't know that it's a nationwide thing, but I think that there are programs like that throughout the country. Something interesting that's happening here in Lincoln, Nebraska is a new community that was built by an organization here. It's called Sage Living. And it is every other floor, it is older adults. And then on the other floor, it is college students. And they're primarily nursing students who are in our local college of nursing. And they live in the same building. And so then there's opportunity for interaction there. And which I think it's one of the first, I think, of its kind, and they're testing it out. But I think that's great. Anytime you can mix generations, right?
That is wonderful. Lincoln sounds like it's got it going.
Yeah, it's a great city, except it's too hot in July and August. But other than that, it's a great city.
Actually, I love Lincoln. My son went to Nebraska Wesleyan to play soccer and get a degree in finance.
Nice.
And we would come, of course, and visit. And I thought, gosh, this is really good. It's very flat.
Yes.
Coming from Seattle. But it was a nice little town. You could get around and people were always friendly. And one time we came, and we said, we're from Seattle. Oh, you brought the rain with you. They were grumpy because it was raining. Anyways, it's a lovely place. We really enjoyed it. So
Good.
One of the things, as anybody who's involved in estate sales or helping people downsize, we ask, what's the most unusual, interesting thing you have found or experience you have?
That's an interesting question because there are so many. The thing that came to mind initially, I'll tell you, is, and I'll keep it clean, but it was a very long walking stick, and it was made from the reproductive organ of a buffalo, a male buffalo.
My God.
And we were like, what? How could that possibly be? And we Googled it, and sure enough, it's a thing, apparently.
Nice.
I think it was a souvenir that someone had bought on a trip somewhere.
Wow.
But we sold it.
Okay. Somebody wanted that.
That's right.
Now, out in Nebraska, are you doing a lot of farms, this sort of downsizing?
Yeah, a lot of our clients are right in the city of Lincoln, but sometimes we do operate out of acreages, which can be more of a challenge. I grew up on a farm, and I always say, on a farm, you don't just have a house full of stuff. You have a shed and a barn and all these other outbuildings that are filled with stuff. And we do operate estate sales and online auctions out of acreages sometimes. If there's a really large amount of stuff on an acreage, then we will refer that out to a traditional in-person auction team where they're out there with the auctioneer. For farm equipment and the things that you would find in the outbuildings, online auctions are still definitely on the rise. And there's some very large companies in the Midwest who do farm auctions. But yeah, it's that much harder when you move off of a farm or off of an acreage just because of the sheer amount of stuff. And so even more incentive to think ahead and plan and maybe do it earlier rather than later.
Okay.
Wow. My son-in-law bought recently, and I was like, why? They don't have acreage, and he bought a tractor online.
Nice. Okay.
Yes. He lives in a small town in North Carolina, and he has family who are farmers. So apparently it is out at one of the farms there, but I'm like, a tractor? What?
It's like a Tonka truck for a kid. They grow up and they still want it.
What
Yeah.
it was. So,
Nice.
So, Jeannine, you have this business. This is your part of, or maybe large source of your family income. You have 20 employees who have to compensate for their work. Tell us about how you structure getting compensated for this expertise and time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everyone who's interested in our services gets a free in-home consultation because people want to know, how much is it going to cost? And our answer is always, how much stuff do you have? Because there's such a wide variety, right? Even if you're moving from a 3-bedroom home into a 1-bedroom apartment, some 3-bedroom homes are packed to the gills and some 3-bedroom homes are neat as a pin. So we always go out and we visit with them. We explain our services and then we get a tour of the home. And the whole time we're making notes about how full the house is, but we're also making notes about the client as we have a conversation with them. Is this a client who's going to need a lot of hand-holding? Is this client already pretty organized and really we just have to come in and do some packing and unpacking and it'll be done? And so from that, we put together a quote that we send to them, and then they can decide if they want to use us or not. I would say for us to help with a move, which means floor plan sorting, packing, managing move day, and unpacking, depending on the size of the place they're going to, it's anywhere from $3,000 to $9,000, depending on if it's a 1-bedroom apartment or if it's a whole house move. And then for our estate sales and our online auctions, we take a percentage. We specialize in larger sales. So we look for a total of $15,000 or more in total sales. So that means that the whole sale is going to bring in $15,000 or more. On average, our sales would be about $18,000 to $20,000 total. We take 35% of that. And then there is also a setup fee depending on how much work there is to be done in the home. One of the things I say, unfortunately, is that it costs a lot of money to have a lot of stuff. And so even if we get a phone call and it's a beautiful $1 million home and it's filled with things and it's going to be a great estate sale, it still takes a lot of manpower to set up that estate sale because we empty out every drawer, every cupboard, every closet, we organize it, we throw out the trash, and then we price everything. And that takes a lot of manpower. And, unfortunately, we can't pay hourly workers $10 an hour anymore. So, our fees have gone up. And so then the fees for our services have gone up as well. But what we do at the end of that sale, we hand them a nice size check, but then what we're also handing them is an empty house. And that's what we have to remind them. What we're doing is we're emptying out your house so that it can be put on the market and sold, because that's your main asset here is the house, not the stuff inside of it. But in order to sell the house, we got to do something with the stuff inside.
do you deal a lot with the family after someone has passed? Do you do a lot of work with them as well?
Yeah, I would say maybe half of our sales that we do are a situation like that, where someone's passed away and the family is emptying it out. And so our first rule is that we want you and your family members to go through and remove anything you want to keep. And then we come in and we'll sell whatever is left. And that's another thing we're watching for when we do that in-home consultation is any kind of red flags or anytime someone is saying, oh, this is a very special piece. And then we'll gently have that conversation and say, boy, if you are able to take that with you, we would love for you to take that with you. Because I always say, I don't want to have a sale for someone who doesn't want a sale. And if you don't want me to sell it, then you can keep it. And we'll just sell the things you are ready to let go of. And we'll sell it for as much money as we possibly can. And after all this time in business, we have about 18,000 people who get our emails. And so we do have quite a following. And we have anywhere from 1, 2, or 3 sales every week. So we see a lot of the same shoppers every week. And so we are able to get pretty good prices, but we're also able to sell about 85% of the stuff in the house. And that's the real value is, again, emptying the house out.
But you understand the values, you understand how to price things correctly.
Yes, absolutely.
I had 2 mother-in-laws.
Okay.
The second one is one that recently passed. But when the first one passed, she had a white beaver coat. And the family I was holding a garage sale, estate sale, whatever you want to call it. And this woman came in and she wanted to buy quite a few things, including the coat, for around $100. And I'm like, yes, go, goodbye. And the family was like, absolutely not. That coat is worth thousands. And I'm like, that coat is not worth anything because it's not wearing them anymore. And they refused. The woman went away with the other things, but not the coat. The coat went from child to my daughter. And my daughter never wears. And I'm like, how did you end up with that coat? She's, I don't know, but I don't want it. I'm like,
exactly.
Get it out.
Exactly. Yeah. Your stuff is worth whatever someone will give you for it. Right.
Right.
And if you are selling things at a garage sale, then you are limited to the people who come to the garage sale and who have cash in hand. That's who you can sell it to. And you're absolutely right. With something like furs, you have to take a lot of things into account. Now, here in the Midwest, people still do wear furs, but it has to be cold enough. It has to be the right size. It has to be the right style and not outdated. Right. And and so sometimes we do hold on to things for guilt or pass them on and think that they're worth a lot of money. And it's just a fool's errand, isn't it?
But I think that China is another one that I had 3 sets of sterling plated flatware. And I'm down to some crystal glasses. And I basically have given it away to friends who wanted it because my kids didn't want any of it.
Yeah, they're not using it. And I have that. I did not register for China when I got married because my mom had passed away. And so I knew I'll just take her China, whatever. So I have her China, but ask me how many times a year I use it. Maybe once.
Went out and bought cheap China because if it broke, then I didn't have to worry about it. Like I literally Walmart China that I didn't care if the kids dropped it on the ground. And I thought, if I don't want it, why would they? And they don't.
Life changes and that's okay. And because it's not like a moral, that's, again, it goes back to how we started. It gets tied up into our identity. It's not a moral issue on whether or not you want these items or don't want these items. And so we have to be careful about not guilting our family members into keeping things.
That's great. I like that.
Jeannine, thank you so much. This has just been absolutely fantastic. And if people are interested in your books, where would they find them?
Absolutely. They're all available on Amazon, but an easy way to get to them is easyrightsizing.com. You just click on books and there's a link to purchase any book that you would like. And I also have an online course on there as well. It's actually over 3 hours of video content, me walking folks through each of the lessons of going through the right sizing process. And there's a bunch of free materials on there as well. So easyrightsizing.com.
And if they were in the Lincoln, Nebraska area, how would they locate you?
Absolutely. Yep. ChangingSpacesSRS.com. The SRS stands for Senior Relocation Services. So ChangingSpacesSRS.com. And I should mention that we run online auctions every week and we do provide shipping. So even if you're in another state and you buy something on our online auction, we can have it shipped to you.
Fantastic. I'll have to look at
The
that.
online auction, where did they find that?
That's at changingspacessrs.com.
Okay, great.
Again, thank you. Such
Yes.
valuable information, interesting insights, and what a resource for Lincoln you are.
Thank
and
you.
keeping in touch with these volunteer organizations so you can help people further. Really an amazing system you have. Fantastic.
Wow.
Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be here.
Yes.
And
Thank you guys. I love talking about it. So thank you for the opportunity.
We really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks again. And that's it, everyone. This has been Getting Your Edge, how to downsize your life. And we hope you enjoy this information. And if you want more information about Jeannine and her business, we will have links on our website and in the podcast notes and so forth, so you can contact her. And easyrightsizing.com is pretty easy to find. All right. Thanks so much.
Yes. Thank you
Jeannine, really
guys.
appreciate it. We'll
So
see you
much.
next time.
Yep.
Bye.
Cool.
Thank you.